All right, we're in Ezra 8. I don't have the beginning. It's a big list of all those people coming with Ezra. So the namesake of the book, right? But the whole first part of the book was actually Zerubbabel and Yeshua building the temple. Now, anticlimactic sort of thing, right? They see all this resistance. They finally get to come back. They build this temple. But then you see, not all that long later, Ezra is being sent out because they haven't really reestablished God's people. They haven't really reestablished Israel. They just built the physical temple, but it's not quite going the way it's supposed to. So we're sending Ezra to sort of sort that, right? As you read the rest of Ezra, it's also got a fairly anticlimactic ending, and we'll get there, right? But just to put it in context, so if you remember, Israel split into two, right? You had Judah and Benjamin staying in Jerusalem, down in the south, and you had the northern kingdoms, 10 tribes in Israel. Israel was destroyed much sooner and they were dispersed, right? So that was the Assyrians. They just sent them all over the place. So those tribes were lost, sort of basically still considered lost today. And then just Judah and Benjamin were taken away as prisoners. And this is some of those people coming back. Originally was Zerubbabel, some more coming back with Ezra. There were some that were left. They didn't take everyone there. But you can see as you go through Ezra and Nehemiah, it's pretty clear the exile is not done, right? The people of God have not been restored to their land the way that they expect. And you can see that in the prophets' writing of this time as well. That's going on. You can see that's not quite there. So it leads to some stories where, there are men of God that do good things, but it never quite seems to be what you'd hope or accomplish what you'd hope, right? And that's part of this theme that leads you to, this is the end of this, that will lead you to, the prophet Malachi, and then the gap before Jesus, the actual Messiah, comes. So this is kind of set up for that. And some Hebrew books are just written that way, right? Jonah, you sort of like, is he the hero of the story or is he not? It's sort of like they intentionally try to leave you with that, to think about it and awkward and say, how does that work exactly? So this is one of those. Before we even start, I'll tell you all of that. So the chapter 8 here, I love this first part after he basically sort of just figures out the trip. Verse 21, they say, hey, we're going to do all this trip and we're going to have all this money and stuff from the king, from Artaxerxes, and we're going to have all of that with us. So this is going to be a little bit tricky. If you're talking whatever, 7,500 pounds of gold or something like that, right? That's a lot of money. So I proclaimed a fast by the river so that we might humble ourselves and humble ourselves before our God and ask him for a safe journey. I did this because I was ashamed to ask the king for infantry and cavalry to protect us from enemies during the journey, since we had told him the hand of our God is gracious to all who seek him, but in his fierce anger is against those who abandon him. So he went to the king and basically said, hey, God is on my side. So he didn't want to go back afterwards and say, hey, by the way, God is on my side, but can you protect me while I drive from here to there? So we fasted and pleaded with God, and he was receptive, and he kept them safe on that prayer. So there's a pretty long section talking about all the stuff they brought with them and how they assigned people to make sure that it was still there when they got there, and they had to count it and weigh it and all that type of stuff. So that continues on through the story. Next interesting one is once you get into chapter 9, the important or key aspect of this, right, is they get there, they see the people of Israel. They had not kept themselves separate, right? They had married into the surrounding people. So that is not necessarily a big racial thing. What it is these people worshiped foreign gods. So if you're marrying into that and you're marrying into people that worship foreign gods, that is bringing that into the people of God, right? So because of that, Ezra is like, I can't believe this. He tears his robe, he pulls out his hair, and he fasts for a while, right? And then he gives an awesome prayer here where he says, God, I'm ashamed and embarrassed to lift my face towards you because our iniquities are higher than our heads, right? And his guilt is high as the heavens. So, but he's got this little second here. It says, where grace has come from the Lord our God to preserve a remnant for us and give us a stake in his holy place, right? So that is a common theme as well. So God makes promises to Israel, but just because you're in the covenant family, in that sort of elect of the Jews, does not mean you inherit all of the promises automatically. There is a remnant that are true and faithful to that covenant, for which God's promises are always faithful. But if you abandon that covenant on your side, then you will not get the promises on the other side. And that's what he's talking about here. He's like, but even then, there's a remnant. You're saying there's still a chance, right? That we're there. And the detestable practices need to be brought out from those people of God if they are going to be the holy people of God and follow his law, right? So how does that happen? Well, chapter 10, Ezra prays, confesses, thinks, and some people come to him and actually say, hey, you know what? We can sort this. We can get rid of these foreign wives. We can get rid of these detestable practices. We can take them out from our people and become the people of God. And Ezra's like, you know what? I think you're right. So he gets up, makes them take an oath. The people respond and say, yes, we're going to do that. But that's going to take a little while. And they don't really want the priests in charge of it, which to a certain extent, that actually says in the reading as you're going, the priests were actually guilty of this as well. There's somebody watching from the other side of the video. Do you want to say hi? You come around and wave. So, oh my goodness, hello. She's not the only one. There's someone hiding behind the couch too. I think he's ducking his head as he's back there. Anyway, the priests were actually leading the way, and it says that. It says the priests and the Levites have not separated themselves from the surrounding peoples and those whose detestable practices are like those of the Canaanites and whatever. And it says, indeed, the Israelite men. So it's all of them were involved in it, including the priests. So the people said, we'll do that, but we don't really want the priests in charge, and this is going to be hard work, so let the leaders do it. And then there's the section at the end where it says, and these are all the people that got rid of their wives, right? Now, there's only like 100 of them. So most people are looking at it and sort of saying, perhaps that's not a complete list, but there's also a pretty good chance that that's all there was that did that, because it wasn't everybody. I mean, this is a pretty big thing. Are you saying I'm going to send away my wife and kids or whatever, right? So, and the funny thing is the book just ends there. So these 100 people say, yes, I'm sending away my wife. The end. Now, in theory, this book is connected to Nehemiah. So yes, it does continue on, but honestly, if you flip to the first page of Nehemiah, it's not continuing the subject. It is just somebody saying, hey, the words of Nehemiah are here and moving on. So it completely changes topics. So that's the end of it. And that is the one of the next sort of anticlimactic endings. You find out as you get in there, Ezra's not gone. He actually comes into the story of Nehemiah. But surprisingly enough, he's going to be trying to bring the detestable practices out of the people of God. So yeah, it's an interesting story to ponder on. But that is it for Ezra as of now. And you'll see that spill into Nehemiah as you keep going. All right. Be blessed reading.